kita udah masuk ke episode ke-27. Mungkin sedikit mengenai Founders Diary ya. Kita waktu mulai Founders Diary karena awalnya tuh COVID happens, and then kita ngerasa wah ini we're being unproductive ya kalau misalnya kita cuma diem-diem di rumah aja gitu. Jadi what can we do that can help our portfolio companies dari Prasetia Group maupun yang ada juga yang bukan Prasetia Group tapi lebih ke arah kalau misalnya produk, different dan lain-lain. Jadi we start doing Founders Diary. Ada juga satu lagi yang apa namanya? What's the name, Ardi? The other one?
Enterprise Talk.
Enterprise Talk, yeah. Another webinar series that we do in the CR group. And we've been doing it for free, nothing, no income or anything. We're just doing it just for the sake of doing it and giving back to the community, and hopefully it can inspire some people to do what they've been wanting to do. Mungkin ada yang dari cakap, ada yang dari YouTube lihat acara ini dan inspired untuk apakah join ke startup ataukah memulai suatu dari nol juga. Jadi it's really what we wanna do, and mungkin sekarang ini udah ke-27. Jadi imagine itu waktu dulu kita melakukannya 2 kali seminggu, sekarang kita melakukannya sekali seminggu. So hopefully it's been a good series, and we keep trying to improve in terms of what we offer to the viewers, and hopefully next year kita bakal punya konsep yang lebih keren lagi agar orang yang nonton ini bisa lebih belajar dari apa yang kita share selama Founders Diary. Oke, untuk hari ini kita ada kedatangan 2 awesome founders. Mereka co-founder dari RestoDepot. Yang pertama adalah Chris Gunawan dan co-foundernya Stefan Rafales. Stefan, you can speak Indonesian fluently, right?
Yeah, lumayan, a little bit.
But Stefan, you're originally from Philippines, right? No?
Yes, originally from the Philippines, but I actually
grew up here, basically. Right?
Was born here. My mom is Indonesian from Padang.
Okay.
So I basically call this my home.
Okay. So
yeah,
you can speak Indonesian quite fluently. So we're gonna ask the questions in English, but you can reply in Indonesian because most of the viewers are Indonesian. So
I will try my best.
Okay. No, you can reply in English as well. I mean, we're fine. So here I'm gonna bring as the moderator with Ardi, my twin brother. We co-founded our own company, Prasetia Dwidharma, back in 2008, and ever since we've tried to invest as well in the tech companies, and yeah, we try to give back what we've achieved in this Founders Diary series. So without further ado, let's go to the first question. What drives and motivates you? Why did you pick this career path to become entrepreneurs? Let's start with Chris.
Okay. Hey, Arya. Hey, Ardi. Thanks for having us. It's a real pleasure. I'll go ahead and start. So I guess what motivates me early on, I think it was the freedom of entrepreneurship, right? I think I was never really the type that enjoyed being told what to do. So I always wanted to start my own business. And I was always passionate about tech products, right? So, in 2016, when Stefan and I started a company called Nibble, which we'll talk about later, it was kind of like the new gold rush, right? Like everyone was jumping into technology in Indonesia. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for Stefan and I to jump in. But I think as it progressed, and as we started building Nibble and RestoDepot, which we'll talk again later, now what really motivates me is the team, actually. We started with with just 3 people in the team. We were up to about 20 something, and unfortunately we had to lay off some people because of COVID-19. But I can confidently say that what motivates me the most is the team. We have 2 team members or 3 team members who have 2 children. They're married. They have mortgages to pay. They have expenses, bills, and I feel that it's kind of like a responsibility that Stefan and I put on ourselves to continue RestoDepot and grow it, so that the team can grow as well and stay together. So that's what motivates me the most. Stefan?
Yeah, I think for me, I think we have to sort of take a step back of where I was, what I was doing before. So after I went to school in Jakarta, graduated and went to college in Dallas, Texas. So I took, I received my bachelor's of computer science from SMU in Dallas, Texas. And I immediately worked for a software company building software for universities, basically, software solutions. So, during that time, I worked there for almost 10 years. And, for me, it was when you get to a point when you're in a corporate structure, it gets very repetitive, gets quite boring. You are sort of enclosed in your own job description and what you need to do for that. But there's really for me at least, there was really no room for growth. So for me, what drives me to become an entrepreneur is when I came back to Indonesia, I had a chance to go back to the US right after my visa expired, and I could work for that company again, but I actually decided not to, just because I wanted to try something different. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to take on a new challenge. And I think starting a company with Chris when we met back up was really that opportunity. I could really be able to learn new things about business, be able to not just be in sort of a bubble that I was in. And for me, that was a no-brainer. For me, that's why I stayed, and that's why I decided to start a business with Chris.
So in a way, your reasons quite similar, right? Because like both of you kind of want to have that freedom, right? And initially you wanted to have that freedom, but I guess over time, that motivation changes. I'm guessing it's not really freedom anymore.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
That being an entrepreneur is not really being free. It's actually being responsible and having that responsibility for other people as well, right?
Of course. So I maybe when I say freedom, I don't mean like freedom as in more time on your hands, but I mean the freedom of to do what you want to do, right, and make decisions you want to make. And it just, for me, it's way more liberating, and it's what makes me get up every morning.
Nice. Okay, next questions. How did you guys find each other, and how did you decide to build business together?
Yeah, I can talk through that. So Chris and I, we went to the same school, Jakarta International School, actually here. So we've known each other since middle school. Quite a long time. That's about over 20 plus years that I've known Chris. So obviously we've been good friends during that time, during our school days. And we both separated when we went to college. He went to San Francisco, I went to Texas. And essentially, even like all our friends now are back in Jakarta, back home. So we ended up meeting back here in Jakarta. And, it was a funny story because I think we met up and we were talking about food. We always talk about food. So we're talking about where's the best food, where's the best, let's say, nasi goreng in Jakarta, what's your favorite bakmi? This is the type of debates that we always have. So although we didn't come from a sort of, at least I didn't come from a sort of F&B background, that's what I was passionate about, is trying new food. And because I was new in Jakarta, I didn't know, again, where's the best places to eat. So that's really how we sort of started to come up with the idea of, hey, we need to find a better way that can help someone find food in Jakarta, or review a dish, or what's good, where to eat. And that's really how we sort of got together and sort of started our first business venture.
Yeah.
And that was Nibble, right?
That was Nibble, yes.
Yeah. So Nibble was basically a food finder app. It's very similar to Zomato or Crave, or in Singapore, there's a company called Burple. It basically helps foodies find the best dishes in their area. And this was in 2016, mind you. So this was before, Instagram, but this was before people were taking photos of their food, right? So we wanted to actually create an app that allowed users to share their favorite food across the city, and allow other foodies to find those foods. But along the way, we pivoted the company two or three times. So it ended up becoming a digital media platform, as well as a kind of like a digital agency as well.
But why do you think Nibble failed, that concept?
Yeah, I can touch base on that. So, when we first started Nibble, Stefan and I wanted to make the best app that we could for us, right? And we kind of just jumped right in. And we built an app that basically did what we wanted it to do, right? And it gained a little bit of traction among hardcore foodies, but it never really hit the mainstream, right? And we do attribute this to maybe not doing enough user research early stage, and not validating our ideas. But at the same time, when we were monetizing the business, it was very difficult because restaurants, they don't have much money to spend on marketing. And the deal sizes are very small, and the sales cycles are very long. So I would say that the reason why it didn't work is probably two reasons. The first is that we didn't spend enough time building a product that people actually want. And second is that it was extremely hard to monetize.
And just to add on that, I think that's a perfect sort of learning experience for us. It's easy to find something of a concept that you want to build, and you think it's going to work. You think, oh, I would use it, so everyone else should use it, but that's really not the case. Because, we built, like Chris said, we built this app, based on what we think would work. And what we learned was that there's a lot of factors that go into it, where, again, like Chris had said, marketing budgets, maybe only the hardcore foodies were using it. Not a lot of people were really picky about their food, or they didn't want to take pictures of their food. There was a lot of things that we took as a learning experience. And because of these things is the reason why we sort of, made a decision to sort of pivot, because, we can only learn from what we experience, right? We have to experience it. We have to see how it develops before we can say, oh, this is something that could really work, or that it couldn't work. So I think that's a big learning experience for us, is we need to sort of do our research, make sure that we know what our target market wants and whether it fits their needs.
But how did you pivot from that Nibble concept to the RestoDepot concept? What was like the aha moment that you experienced? That made you think, okay, let's scrap this, and then.
Yeah, I can touch base on that. So, when we were building up Nibble, we were developing a network of contacts or restaurant owners or people in the restaurant industry. And we were talking to, thousands of restaurants, right? Either at the owner level or at the staff level. And along the way, during conversations we have with these restaurants, you get to talking about other problems that they may be facing, right? So, you start offering them, let's say, advertising products, but then, some of them might push back and say, hey, actually, we don't need advertising products. What we actually need is this, right? And a majority of the people that we spoke to always had a bad story to tell about their purchasing process, right? They always had a negative story, right? They all hated their suppliers, basically. When Stefan and I kind of started doing this, we quickly realized that there was a huge problem in food service purchasing, right? So without getting into too much detail about the problem, I want to talk more about the pivot. We quickly realized that we had to pivot, right? And the three things that we thought about when we were doing the pivot is first is focus on what we have, right? So we took a good hard look at what we had, and we realized that our strength was our network of restaurants, right? So any kind of pivot had to preserve or leverage that network of restaurants. The second is follow the money, right? So this can happen in a few ways, right? This can be, industry trends, or, talking to VCs, or, reading the news. You can kind of tell where the market is going. And at the time, it was B2B e-commerce, right? That was, the next big thing. Everyone saw Alibaba, and everyone saw these huge companies in China do really well, and there wasn't really an equivalent here in Indonesia, or there wasn't too many of them. So we decided B2B e-commerce was the play, right? And then lastly, we decided just to do it, right? I think that's the third thing that I would mention is that don't be scared, just commit 100%, right? Don't go halfway, because I think a lot of times people pivot and it's not a complete pivot. It's just like kind of, they're just tweaking the product a little bit and they mess up on, the business model or whatnot. So I would say that these three things kind of guided us. Focus on what you have, follow the money, and don't be scared.
Anything you want to add, Stefan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of deciding to pivot, it wasn't, just so that you all know, it wasn't something that we were just like, oh, let's just one day, this isn't working out, let's just go ahead and pivot tomorrow. Yeah. Chris and I, our decision to pivot was really based on meeting each other every day, working together every day, finding out what's working, what's not, what do we need to do. Obviously, the research that we got from talking to restaurant owners. So for us, it was something that we needed to do, but it took quite a while to do it. It was not like an overnight decision, right? And again, like Chris said, I think for us, we really just needed to do it because although we've built this app, we spent a lot of money on it. Chris and I actually bootstrapped Nibble for 2 years. We didn't take any investor money for Nibble. We literally took it out of our pockets to build this app. So we know that we were invested in building a business. And so even though we sort of changed direction to pivot to RestoDepot, for us, it's worth it because we're obviously passionate about the industry. We obviously want to build something that works. That's what we did. And that's based on what we've been hearing from, and the advice and the direction based on what we've talked about with restaurant owners.
Okay. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Chris. I'm handing it over to Ardi.
Okay, before I ask the next question, if anyone wants to ask on the YouTube or Chakap or Zoom, just drop us a message. So, hi Chris, hi Stefan. Okay, let's get to the next question. What are the ups and downs of doing a pivot? Let's start with Chris.
Yeah, sure. I think the downs, right? I'll start with the downs, I guess, right? Of course, there has to be disappointment, right? You spend 2 years, focused on building a certain product and getting it to know, the users so intimately. you sacrifice a lot, right? So deciding to kind of pivot and not really losing the progress, but changing ideas or starting from scratch again, or from going back to the drawing board, whatever you want to call it, that obviously has to be disappointing, right? But at the same time, it can be also very, satisfying, right? Because it's a new day, right? It's a new dawn. It's a new idea, right? And it depends, I guess, what kind of founder you are, or do you like early stage, or do you like later stage? But for Stefan and I, we really love early stage of our company, right? This is where we can really get our hands dirty. We can do things that we're uncomfortable with, or things that can help us grow. It really, I wouldn't say there's really ups and downs. It's just the way that you look at it, and the way that Stefan and I chose to look at it is to take the opportunity and do the pivot.
So there's not much a downside. Probably it's more to the upside.
Yeah, I would say that. Okay, I don't think anyone pivots just to pivot. I think you do it out of necessity, right? So I don't feel, for me, I always was 100% for it and 100% comfortable with it. Because, as in a startup, there's 3 stages, right? The first is idea stage. Second stage is product market fit stage. And the third stage is scaling, right? When you pivot, it's probably because you failed at stage 2, the product market fit. Like, you weren't able to build a product that fits a particular market, or it wasn't really sticky enough, right? So if you want to get to stage 3 and beyond, you have to get past stage 2, right? And the only way to get past stage 2 is to pivot. So for us, it was, I don't see it as ups and downs necessarily. I just think of it as necessary.
So what happened to the last app?
It's still there. We kind of shaped it into a digital media platform now, so it's all web based. So you can actually go to nibble.id now and still read some of the articles that we've made. It still gets 500,000 users probably a month reading our articles, but we don't really invest or grow that side of that business anymore. But
is it something that you can explore to improve or get something out of it?
Yeah, so we're toying with the idea of using it as a content marketing platform. So the idea is someone would stumble into nibble.id through SEO, and then they'll see an article about, let's say, rice, and then we can kind of push the readers or the users to visit RestoDepot.id or download the app, our RestoDepot app. So it's just another way to kind of generate app installs.
Okay. Stefan, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of I think the biggest in terms of the pivot is just again, like sort of Chris said, the disappointment of just the time and money that you put in. Like with anything, if you are investing a lot of time and money in something and sort of doesn't work out, obviously you sort of reflect and see, what have we just done for the last 2 years, But we don't see it that way. We see it as a positive, because I think when we did Nibble, we learned a lot of lessons, right? When we first started it, we basically hired a company in Singapore to build the app. We invested a lot of money to basically a outside vendor, basically, that's not even local, to build it. And when we were testing it here, we also ran into a lot of, problems as well. But I think those are all learning lessons, because when we then pivoted to RestoDepot, we built it from scratch, knowing what we knew, the architecture of the platform, knowing what code to use. Our main developers were with us when we built Nibble. And so when we built the new product, we know how they work. We know what they can do, what their capabilities are. And essentially we built a better product as a result of that experience. So I think there's really, again, for us, there's always the downside for the disappointment aspect, but the ups, you know, we're dealing with a new company, a new product, a new system, and something that we built and really thought about from scratch. So we know that this is, I think, the right way to do it, or at least that's what we think, but the better way to do it than what we tried in the first, in building Nibble.
So what are the challenges for both of you to agree on the same pivot?
So I think like I said before, I don't think there really was a challenge because, and again, Chris and I, our decision to pivot was based on, you know, working together every day and figuring out what works and what doesn't. You know, we both were like, you know, basically at the end of our ropes with, you know, the amount of money that we were investing and the amount of time that we were investing as well. And we were just like, you know, we need to really learn about what's going to work, what has a better chance of succeeding. And, you know, we both really agreed that we need to take a new direction based on the feedback from what we get from, you know, surveying our customers and things like that.
Yeah, but for some people, for some co-founders,
Mm-hmm.
when they fail, maybe they get so emotional and then they start blaming each other and then they basically have a breakup, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
how did you guys have did you have like a special recipe to have a good relationship?
I mean, I think the fact that Chris and I have been friends for over 20 years plays a big part. Again, I don't know, again, it may be different, right, with other people, but we work well together. We know each other. We know what pushes each other's buttons. We know what issues we have, but at the end of the day, I think just knowing that, you know, you don't get so emotional, you don't get so angry at each other. I think it's surprising, but we actually never had any of that.
Yeah.
You know, we never had any conflict like that when doing a big move like this.
Yeah, I think it was very positive. I think Stefan, yeah, I think you touched on everything. I think it's all about self-respect and respecting each other. I've known Stefan since the 5th, 6th grade, right? So, you know, we used to spend high school all together, right? So for me, like any kind of fight would have, you know, happened before that, right? And I guess when we were building or pivoting into RestoDepot, it was just trying to figure out what actually works and what to dedicate our lives to. And we didn't really, we didn't antagonize each other in any way coming up with a decision. I think we came to it mutually and made the decision together.
Well, did you have any other options other than creating the current business model?
Yeah, so we were thinking about a customer loyalty SaaS platform. And I think something to do with stamps, right, was really exciting. We thought that there was an opportunity for restaurants to, I guess, attract more customers by offering more promos or issuing digital customer loyalty programs. But again, I think what we did is, you know, we did the research, right? We talked to people who actually made customer loyalty programs here in Indonesia. And the feedback was not so good. You know, we had 2 founders who told us not to do it. You know, they tried to do it for, you know, a year or 2 years, and they said it's just impossible. They said it's hard to get restaurants to put up the effort to do it. So I think we decided not to do that pretty quickly. But yeah, that was definitely something we were entertaining.
Did you guys have any concerns of like big unicorns of let's say they do the same business model because they have the network, of course?
Yeah, of course. That was definitely obviously something we considered as well, right? I mean, we don't want to obviously, there's obviously some things that we don't want to get into, right? Like we think that obviously things like food delivery, I don't think that really makes sense because of Gojek. And I didn't think that, let's say like a consumer e-commerce, I think that's probably not a good idea either. I think that's, you're going to be challenged a lot there. So I think we really looked at the market or did the industry research and just saw which spaces or segments that were still kind of open, and B2B e-commerce was one of them.
Okay. Stefan, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of Chris touched based on that.
Okay.
But yeah, for us, I think it's based on sort of the theme of this is, we failed with Nibble in terms of, getting traction and monetizing. But I think the next step that we took will just basically get that back up. So, that's what we took. We took the risk. Obviously, it's a big risk, but, you have to take risks, right? You have to try it out, or else if you don't, then I don't think we should be startup founders, right? We need to take the risk. We need to be able to take what we have and see what works.
Who is more risk averse or from?
I think Chris is a bigger risk taker than I am.
Okay.
I think he is.
Did you guys have any like debates in terms of the business model? Because like maybe Chris is getting more risk.
I think we didn't have really debates, but I think for me at least, I was very risk averse a long time ago. Like even in like college and in high school, very risk averse. I was pretty like the stability of things, but I think for some reason it sort of changed over time as well, because maybe I needed more of a challenge. But in terms of Chris and I's dynamic, I think we've discussed a lot of things, but I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think I think you're the one that sort of like pushes it more, and drives it more, and he's very convincing.
Yeah, but I guess like I don't pull it out of my butt, right? I mean, like I have to back up everything that I say or propose, right? Otherwise, it's just not going to work out. Like I won't feel good about it, even bringing it to Stefan or asking him to try something with me. So if the numbers are there and the things like market size, things like unit economics, those things that we bring up and we make a decision together, but based on facts.
Okay, thank you. So I'll pass it back to Arya.
Thank you, Ardi. So next question is how did you build the culture in RestoDepot? Is it the same as the one that you built with Nibble or completely different?
Yeah.
Stefan, I don't know, or Chris, up to you.
Sure. Like when we started Nibble, it was a very small team, right? It was probably like 5 or 6 of us. And the culture was, for me, I think it's almost the same, right? The number one thing is that we do our part to get everything done, right? I think at an early stage where we are right now, like between like less than 20 people, everyone has to, put in a hand, right? They have to do what they have to do to achieve the goals, right? So when we first pivoted into RestoDepot, we had a tiny office, right, in Tangerang, right? We had like one floor of a ruko, and we all sat on a share table, meaning we just sat around each other, and we could see each other. Basically, we were sitting right across from each other, And it was probably, it started with just 3 of us, and then it grew to 6, and then it grew to 10, and then we moved to an office. But at the time, at the very early stage, it was really, everyone does everything, right? Like, I did the finance, I did the fundraising, I did the coding, I did the sales, I did the accounting, I washed the toilets, right? Like, I think everyone basically just pitched in to do what they have to do. And that's what I really believe at an early stage, what makes a really good company.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll sort of touch base on that. I mean, I think the culture that we built and want to keep sort of preserving is the fact that everyone's job creates an impact of what we do, right? Everyone has a big part in what their job is really impacting, the results, our success. But not only that, we also want to make sure that everyone has learns not just what they're good at, but new things. Like, for example, I majored in computer science. That was sort of my thing, is to building products and focusing on the tech. But I end up learning about how to, the operations side, and how to do balance sheets, and how to, human resources. So I think that's what makes us sort of maybe not unique to other startups as well, but just in general, what makes a startup unique is how everyone has a hand in everything. And those who join startups at an early stage learn a tremendous amount in a very short period of time, because anything can happen, right? Something needs to be done here, something needs to be done here. Maybe some emergency happens and someone needs to learn how to, fix that issue. And that's sort of how we've sort of built that culture where everyone is quite equal. Everyone is helping each other out. And I think that's very important. I think it's assisting other people and helping each other out. That's sort of what we want to make sure we preserve with our culture.
You mentioned earlier, Stefan, that you work for the more like corporate, right?
Yes.
For like 10 years. Did you, after you came back here with RestoDepot and also Nibble, did you find that goal of being away from that specific culture and then moving to like a more unique culture with RestoDepot?
Absolutely. When I was working in sort of a more corporate environment, I was literally only dealing with our technology team, no one else. So I was talking with developers every day. I was working with, basically everyone, all the tech guys. But really, because it was so segregated, we didn't really, meddle in any other different departments. So for me, I was just focused on, software, the tech side, and that was it. So when we started sort of the startup Nibble and then RestoDepot, it's a very different culture. It's very open. I'm even, we don't see anyone from our team can basically come up to us and talk to us about an issue, and no problem, we'll get it done. Even if we have to go in and fix something, we'll do it. But in corporate environment, you can't do that. I can't just go up to the vice president and just be like, hey, I have this issue. Nah, you have to go through human resources. You have to set up a meeting. You don't feel like you make an impact. You feel like you've done the job. And in order to take that next step, you have to go through multiple steps. It's not just as easy as walking up to someone and just be like, hey, I have an idea and I think we should do this. That's just not going to happen because of the levels of management you have to go through. So I think with the startup, it's very open. It's a much more open environment. It's a much more creative environment where you collaborate and bounce ideas off each other. And I think that's much an environment that I like to work in.
And do you implement something right now in RestoDepot that will preserve that culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do. I mean, for us, you know, again, we're still a small team, so because we're a small team, we still have that type of culture. You know, obviously, when we do grow, we don't know what's going to be, you know, how the culture is going to change, if it will change. We'll try to preserve it as best as we can, by sort of just, again, when we talk to sort of our team, it's a very open conversation, open environment. You can come to us for anything, right? So I hope that we still have that kind of communication, even if we grow, and when we grow, you know.
How big is your team right now?
It's 16 of us.
Including us. Yeah.
Including us, yes.
Did it change during the pivoting?
It actually, when we started Nibble at the peak, it was probably only like 4 or 5 people on Nibble. But RestoDepot now had 20 or more than 20, I think, before COVID-19. And then unfortunately we had to lay off a few people. And now we're down to 16.
Okay.
So what do you see is going to happen? I mean, we don't know when is going to be the post-pandemic, you know, but just for 2021, do you see like a rebound for industry or what?
Yeah, so I think for those guys who haven't picked up yet, we're basically in the F&B industry. We serve food service businesses, so that's restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, bakeries, hotels. We basically provide them with tools to help them with their procurement, purchasing. At the same time, we also supply them with products as well. So yes, so I do believe in 2021, there's going to be a lot of changes, right? And we've already been seeing those changes, right? The first is, I think we've been seeing this already, is that there's going to be a shift in consumer behavior from eating in malls and high-end restaurants to eating more neighborhood restaurants and off-premise restaurants, using things like Gojek and Grab food. You see this all the time. People are, you know, starting these small F&B businesses from their home, cooking up some dishes and selling them online. I think we're going to continue to see that in 2021. The second is less consolidation. So I think, and more fragmentation. So there's going to be less big chain restaurants or big groups of restaurants, you know, like Boga Group, Ismaya Group. I think there's going to be less of them and more fragmentation, meaning there's going to be smaller restaurants, independently owned restaurants. Third, though, is we still see opportunity because we still think the middle class is going to continue to grow, and they're going to continue to seek innovative and interesting food products. I don't think that's going to suffer. I think people are still going to demand more interesting food products. And lastly, I think this is the biggest one in 2021. I think value will be king. People will be looking for value for their food. So they won't be eating in branded or high-end restaurants. They're going to be finding cheaper eats because they'll be scared of, you know, what's going to happen next. Is there going to be another PSBB? You know, are they going to have less job opportunities? So they're probably, consumers are probably going to be seeking lower cost food items, and those will continue to do well or even grow.
So is that the trend that you've seen as well from your data?
Yes. So I think, well, just in general, just being in the market or being in the space and seeing what does well and what doesn't well. I mean, if you see, I don't want to talk bad about them, but you know, the restaurants in the malls, right? The big chain ones, those are not doing so well, right? They've been ordering less from us as well, so we know that they're not doing well. But if you look at, you know, online restaurants or value-based restaurants like Ayam Geprek Bensu, they're doing tremendously well. You know, they're doing even better, right? Because people are seeking, you know, low-cost food items to be delivered to their homes or to their offices.
I see. Okay. So the last question is gonna be from Ardi. But before the last question from us, if there are any questions from the audience, please write it on the chat. And is there any question in YouTube or Cakap?
Not yet so far.
Okay. So let's go to Ardi and with the last question.
Okay. So we asked this question to every founder that comes across the Founder's Diary. So what is the key takeaway in being a startup founder? Can you give some advice to the aspiring entrepreneurs? So let's start with Stefan.
Yeah, sure. I think for me personally, I think experiencing building a startup, a big takeaway is really doing your research. I think that's the biggest thing. It's really getting into, what your business does, who your target market is, and really, go out and interview those people and go out and really, really learn what the problems are that they're facing. Before you start tackling the solution, you really need to understand the problem, right? And I think that's, when we started Nibble, I think that was one of the biggest things is, maybe we didn't research enough on the problem, and we spent 2 years building a startup that really didn't take off until we pivoted. So I think if we did, more research, if we really understood the problem and really understood the solution better, I think we would have had an easier time and even potentially avoided a pivot in the first place. So, for me, I think the big takeaway is really just, again, understanding what you're trying to do and really going for it. There's really, you just have to go for it and never give up. Even when things are tough, times are tough, again, especially where we're in a pandemic, and, let's just say business isn't going so well, just continue to learn from those experiences and see what you can do better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to give my 2 cents now. I think founders, right? They come in all different shapes and sizes, right? I don't think there is a blueprint for like a good founder or a bad founder. I think you'll have if you look at let's say Steve Jobs, he's definitely like more of a salesman, right? Where you'll see, let's say like Elon Musk, he's more of like an engineer. But I do think that these guys, right, or founders in general, good founders, they have 3 things, right, that they do really well, right? The first is they execute, right? If they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Secondly is they learn from their execution, meaning if let's say they execute and they fail, they're gonna have a profound learning about why it failed, right? And they're gonna learn really quickly. And lastly, the third thing is persistence. So they're gonna repeat the cycle over and over again, right? Execution, learning, execution, learning, execution, learning, until they get it right. And I think that's all it is. You have the ability to execute, you have the ability to learn, and you should just be persistent. And if I could give any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, I think I'll give some practical advice here. I think the first thing you should do is probably pick up some skills, right? Try to learn like a programming language or framework, if that's what you want to do, if you want to get into tech. There's so many resources online now, like you can sign up for, the Codecademy, Team Treehouse, you could learn a programming language quite quickly. After you learn that skill, right, I think you should build something, right? Whether if it's just a simple website or if it's like an app or whatever, just build it and then go through the process and fail at it, because you probably will fail, but at least you'll learn about the process and have a respect for it. And lastly, if you want more on the business side of things, I'm going to give them a shout out here because I know you guys are close with them. I do believe in the Y Combinator method. There is an awesome resource called startupschool.org. It's a Y Combinator program. Basically, it teaches you the ins and outs of startups. from doing the research, from building the product, from raising money, and even how to get into Y Combinator. So I would definitely check that out, startupschool.org. Those are my takeaways.
All right. Thank you, Chris and Stefan. We got a question from Ivan Haryanto. How much time both of you do the research and run the business?
But some people may say that just do it because time is running. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the question is on the research.
Yeah. I don't want you guys to think that it's like, we're like in a laboratory or like cooped up in like an apartment, just, doing, 100% research. It's, doing, a couple user interviews a day, right? Talk to the potential users, have a candid discussion with them about their problems and potential solutions. Do like 2 a day. Call your friends and family who are maybe in that industry that you're trying to break into, or get referred by a friend. Talk to people and then make sure to document everything like on a spreadsheet so you can make sense of the data. I think what we did was we spent 2 years building up Nibble. So we kind of gradually built up research, building up that business. But I think when we were about to do the pivot, I would say we probably did research for about a month, probably a month of talking to people, researching online, talking to VCs or potential or friends of VC partners who are our friends. I think you shouldn't spend too much time, but just make sure you do it right.
But did you guys do like a similar approach when you started Nibble and when you decided to pivot in terms of research?
Not really. I think when we built Nibble, I think what Stefan said, I think we just try to build the coolest product ever and try to build it for us. And it kind of didn't work out, right? And the lessons or the takeaway that we had from that is that, we have to do more research at the idea stage, right? So what we did was, there was 3 types of research that we did. The first is user surveys, right? This is just surveys that we made on Google Forms or SurveyMonkey and passing it out to as many people as possible. The second is user interviews, actually talking to these restaurant owners, right? And asking them a set of questions, right? Things about like how they do business now, what problems they face, how much time they spend doing each process, really mapping out the pain points. And then the third would be industry research, right? Things like finding reports online, finding how big the market is, how many restaurants there are in Indonesia or in Southeast Asia. And those are kind of broad research that we did. But I think definitely when we were pivoting into RestoDepot, we spent a lot more time thinking about research and the quality of research.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can add something there too. So I think one of the biggest things as well is from the tech side, is, knowing how to build your product. So I think that's one of the things with Nibble is that we really wrote requirements for this app. It has to do this, 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 this. And we basically sent it off to, an external company to build basically. And what we got back was a great product. We liked the product, we made additions to it and we hired a local developer to maintain it. And, that was all good. But again, it was sort of, in my opinion, it was maybe a little bit too rushed. We really needed to think of it a little bit more and do our research. So when we started with RestoDepot, we took our first employee, our developer, and we built it together. We talked about the requirements, we talked about how users will use it. And ultimately, just by having that discussion, it made the product much better and much easier without having to fix things later. So, when we talk about research, it's just not just research like, target market and things like that. It's also researching how to build a really good product in the most efficient way and in the least amount of time, and to still make a good product.
Who is more technical between you, both of you?
Probably Stefan. I think he has the computer science background. Like I just pick it up. I mean, I'm pretty much self-taught. Like I use Team Treehouse. It's basically an online platform that you can register to and pay for, and you can learn basically any language. And I just learned by doing, and basically building products and doing small projects here and there. But it's just something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And I mean, I was really blessed to also be part of building software in my early years after college, because a lot of the things that I learned there, from using specific programs to be able to report bugs and track issues, we sort of implemented when we did RestoDepot as well, and software methodologies and things, basically building a solution from ground up. I think that really helped with, basically creating the first products and obviously moving from Nibble to RestoDepot. So I know that all those experiences, I think is really helpful now. And I'm glad I learned it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arya, please carry on.
So, thank you for the sharing. I'm gonna speak Indonesian right now.
There's another question.
Yeah, I got.
Oh, you got another question? Okay, sorry. How did you choose which developer to build your program? Did you compare several developers or just by reputation? I'm guessing this is when you chose the third party, right?
Yeah, so I would go here. I would tell you not to do that immediately. Don't use a third party. If you're talking about choosing a developer company, so you might be talking about choosing or hiring developers, but I'm assuming that you're talking about choosing a third party. I wouldn't do that. I would try to build the team out myself. You'll save time, you'll save money. Try to hire if you're not a technical founder, try to partner with one and hope that they can do it. But yeah, if you're going to choose developers, meaning hire them, you just you obviously look at their experience and their projects, what they worked on before, and try to see the quality of the code that they write. But it really comes down to experience. But if you're trying to hire a third party, I just wouldn't do that.
But I guess it depends, right? It depends on what kind of product you would need, right? Let's say you're building a product, it's gonna like evolving product, then you might as well build your own team, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
let's say you just need a software for, I don't know, like a simple task that you don't need to be customized every time you use it. I say it's only for internal use, then it's something that you can outsource to like a third party, right?
Sure, I guess so. I guess if you're just talking about staff augmentation, like meaning like if your current team is already really busy building your product, and you just want to build, let's say, like a CMS panel or an admin panel, and you can probably hire someone else to do that. Yes, I think you could do that. But if you're trying to build your core product using a third party, I wouldn't do that. It'll be too expensive down the line to maintain the code and fix the bugs and all that. They're just going to charge you more and more and more.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was when I think in terms of this question, right, we did research on sort of companies to basically hire to build our app. And, we looked at several. We looked at, I think, one in India. We compared the price, one in Singapore, or a couple in Singapore. And we ended up choosing one that we thought was the best. And again, they were great. You know, they created the product. It was a great product, but it was very expensive.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were just like, we need to sort of invest in a good product, you know. And Chris, you were saying?
Yeah, I think the product when it came out, it was really good. But then came the times when we had to tweak the product because, you know, we were talking to users and they wanted this feature and we thought we could add this feature. And then it just became really expensive, you know, because they basically invoice you, right? So I think that's not the right path to go but if you're, you know, if you don't have a technical founder or if you don't have it, just try to find one and try to hire local developers to build it for you.
Yeah. I mean, just keep in mind, if someone else has built the product and they give it to one of your developers, your developer has to relearn everything. They have to look at all the comments. They have to look at what each function does. They have to basically learn the entire architecture before they can even start working on it. And I think that's the big thing. If you sort of built the product, if you have a partner that built it with you, they already know what it does. That saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of money, and a lot of headache, actually. So again, there's no right or wrong with basically hiring an outside company to do it, but just know that the risks when you do have to maintain it, again, like Arya had said, depends on the type of product, right? But if you are going to be building a product that's going for the long term, it's always better to build it within your team because they're the ones that are going to be working on it every day and they know it best.
Yeah, if you're going to build a company around the core product, I think you should, hire a team to build it.
And there's another
in-house team. Yeah.
There's another question. How expensive it was.
And I'll DM you after this. SM Lydia.
No, but maybe let's take the question. Let's say if you do it yourself or you outsource it.
Like
how much? Yeah, I mean,
it's roughly it's roughly 4 times more expensive. We did the math. Locally, about 4 times. But if you're talking about Singapore, it could be 5 to 6 times.
Okay. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So okay, like in the cheapest that we found in India was about, I think it was like $12,000 to make $12,000 to make an Android and iOS app. But you know, there was a language barrier, and it was probably not going to turn out great. But I think the most expensive for the same app, it's a developer here in Indonesia, and you guys probably know them. It was like $130,000 for the same app.
130?
$130,000, yeah.
130,000.
Same app,
really?
Exact same requirements, the Indian company and the Indonesian company. So it can vary wildly. So, but I mean, you get what you pay for. I'm sure the $130,000 one's going to turn out a lot better than the $12,000 one.
But yeah, it gets expensive. Very expensive.
Wow. Okay, any other question?
Okay, I have a question. Some startups during the pandemic, they, especially with a good tech team, they do some outsourcing of technical stuff.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that or not?
Not right now, no. Like we kept our tech team. We actually grew it during the pandemic. We added like one developer because we were going through the pivot, and we decided that we really needed another one to kind of to speed up the pivot process. We haven't outsourced anyone so far.
Okay, thank you. So Arya, let's close it.
Yeah, so let's close it. So thank you, Chris and Stefan, for sharing. And I think there are a lot of insights from pivoting, from finding that I guess follow the money, I guess, right? Because and then do your research early on. And I guess there are a lot of insights that everyone can do, because I guess starting up a company and like especially like a startup, you need to begin with the right foundation, right? And I guess you're learning probably when you started Nibble, you didn't begin with a good enough research, and then you kind of like revamp that when you started RestoDepot. So I guess that was a good learning that everyone can really follow. So again, this is our last episode for 2020, but it's not gonna be our last episode. We're gonna come back with a different format next year. Hopefully, it's gonna be more insightful and more technical. So we're gonna talk about like how to do fundraising, how to do cohort analysis, So I guess we're gonna ask a lot of founders about how they do stuff running their startup. So it's gonna be. We hope it's gonna be more impactful going forward.